They told you the Incas built everything with copper chisels and stone hammers. They told you it all made sense. But stand at Sacsayhuaman and press your hand against stones that weigh 200 tons, fitted so tight a razor blade won't slip between them, and ask yourself if that story holds. In the highlands of Peru, scattered across valleys and mountaintops, megaliths rise that defy every textbook explanation. Blocks carved with angles that engineers struggle to replicate. Walls that survived 500 years of earthquakes while Spanish churches beside them crumbled. Precision that looks machined, not hand-carved. 12 sites, 12 mysteries. No clear answers. What did the ancient builders know that we've forgotten? 5,206 pits carved into a hillside, each hole between 1 and 2 meters wide, half a meter to 1 meter deep. They stretch for nearly 1.5 kilometers across the Serpent Mountain. National Geographic photographed them from the air in 1933, and for 92 years, nobody could explain why they exist. No pottery, no artifacts, just holes. Arranged in roughly 60 distinct sections separated by empty ground. A study published in Antiquity in November 2025 by archaeologist Jacob Bongers from the University of Sydney and anthropologist Charles Stanish from the University of South Florida finally offers an answer using drone photography and sediment analysis. They propose the band of holes functioned as a marketplace during the late intermediate period, around 1000 to 1400 AD, then shifted to an accounting device for goods and tribute under the Inca Empire after 1400 AD. Each pit may have represented a unit of exchange or storage marker. The research, confirmed through precision drone mapping because permanent haze makes ground observation nearly impossible, shows the pits organized into clusters averaging 43 meters from ancient foot trails. Christian Mader from the University of Bonn's Center for Dependency and Slavery Studies called the proposal convincing, but noted, "We still have much to learn about indigenous economic mechanisms. The holes themselves required coordinated labor, thousands of man-hours digging into volcanic gravel." Stanish noted the site has long been prominent in pseudo-archaeology, with rampant speculation depriving indigenous peoples of rightful ownership of their past. The accounting theory makes sense, it's grounded, but it leaves one question dangling. Why here? Why this exact hillside? And why did they stop using it? The pits remain. The people who dug them are silent. Next. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences published in September 2024, detailing AI accelerated discoveries at Nazca, the journal Science Advances from February 2024 on Kalak Puma megalithic plaza dating, and Antiquity Journal from November 2025 on Monte Sierpe economic function. These are peer-reviewed archaeological publications, not speculation. Now back to the information. A century before the Great Pyramid of Giza, roughly contemporary with Stonehenge in England, Jason Toohey from the University of Wyoming led the excavation starting in 2018. The plaza consists of 2 concentric stone circles, 18 meters in diameter. But here's what makes it strange. The megalithic stones are placed vertically, close together with no mortar, unshaped, pulled from exposed bedrock about 50 meters away. This construction method is unlike any other Andean plaza of that period. Other circular plazas from the same era used stone masonry walls built from cobbles and soil, not these massive upright stones. Published in Science Advances in February 2024, the study confirms this is one of the earliest megalithic structures in the Americas. The people who built it were hunter-gatherers, just beginning to experiment with food production. They had no permanent settlements. They were mobile. Yet they came together to construct this plaza, probably for ceremonial purposes. The site was ritually closed between 500 BC and 200 BC. Dirt and stones deliberately piled over it. Why build something this monumental if you're still nomadic? Why vertical megaliths, when masonry walls were the norm? Toohey suggests it may have marked claims to resources as people began settling down. Repeated events at plazas like this may have developed local social identities, tying people to place. The plaza predates agriculture in the region. It predates cities. It predates everything we thought was necessary for monument building. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey proved hunter-gatherers could build megaliths 11,000 years ago. Kalak Puma proves they did it in the Americas too. The stones still stand, worn, silent, older than the Inca by over 4,000 years. Move on. Century. The terraces on the northern side are formed by 3 massive zigzag walls. The largest blocks weigh up to 200 tons. Some blocks stand 13 feet tall. The longest wall extends for about 400 meters. The walls are approximately 18 feet high. The blocks are limestone, diorite, and andesite. Limestone came from about 9 miles away. Andesite probably from the Rumikolka quarry 22 miles east. Here's the problem. The stones fit together with tolerances that would challenge a modern stonemason. A sheet of paper won't fit between many joints. The blocks have rounded corners. Their interlocking shapes vary wildly. The walls lean inward. This precision, combined with the massive weight, has puzzled archaeologists for decades. Theories range from alien intervention to lost sonic technology to plant-based acids that softened stone. Researcher Roseanne Chambers documented the actual methods in a study published in August 2024. Archaeological evidence from quarries shows the Incas used hammerstones composed of hard, rounded rocks from riverbeds. They nibbled away at blocks bit by bit. Wooden templates were used to match void shapes in walls. Each edge of a void was copied with wooden boards secured at exact angles. Templates were assembled with dowels, tested for fit, then transferred to new stones. The stones were shaped with bronze tools and flint scrapers. Partially finished blocks found along ancient roads show workers continued refining stones during transport. The process required thousands of hours per block. Patience, precision, muscle, no magic, just technique accumulated over generations. But there's a twist. Some researchers note that the lowest, most massive stones show characteristics different from Upper Inca work: slightly vitrified surfaces, organic curves, the possibility that the Incas built upon older foundations from an earlier culture. This layering appears at Cusco, at Machu Picchu, at Ollantaytambo. The Incas were master builders, but were they building on bones left by someone else? The walls survived the Spanish conquest. They survived 5 centuries of earthquakes. They're still standing. The Spanish? They looted the smaller stones for their own buildings. Only the massive blocks remain, too heavy to move, too perfect to forget. Next mystery. The Nazca people created geoglyphs between 200 BC and 650 AD by removing the desert's reddish surface rock to reveal lighter soil beneath. By 2024, archaeologists had discovered 430 figurative geoglyphs over nearly a century of searching. Then, artificial intelligence changed everything. Masato Sakai, from Yamagata University's Institute of Nazca, partnered with IBM scientists to train AI to detect geoglyphs in aerial imagery. In just 6 months, during the 2022 and 2023 field seasons, they confirmed 303 new geoglyphs. The study was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in September 2024. The AI system identified potential geoglyphs 20 times faster than human researchers. The new discoveries nearly doubled the known catalog. The geoglyphs depict human-like figures, decapitated heads, domesticated animals like llamas, fish, cats, birds, and killer whales wielding knives. One orca measures 22 meters long, holding a knife. On Nazca pottery from the same period, scenes show orcas with knives cutting off human heads. The orca was a being that carried out human sacrifice. The relief-type geoglyphs are smaller, less distinct, and located an average of 43 meters from ancient foot trails. They depict mainly human motifs, or things modified by humans, 81.6%. The giant line-type geoglyphs depict wild animals, 64%. They're spaced along the ceremonial network of linear and trapezoidal geoglyphs, probably used for ritual activities on a community level. The relief types were made by individuals or small groups walking the trails. The line types required community coordination, 2 different purposes, 2 different scales, both created by scraping away 30 to 40 centimeters of surface material. The AI model still has hundreds more candidates to investigate. Researchers estimate 200 to 300 additional geoglyphs await confirmation. The Nazca lines are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Climate change threatens them with flash floods. Accidental and malicious destruction has occurred. The AI system represents a 16-fold acceleration in discovery rate compared to the period from 2004 to 2020. The revolution in archaeological discovery is happening now. The lines remain fading, vulnerable, waiting for interpretation. Keep moving. Ollantaytambo's unfinished Temple of the Sun, Sacred Valley, Peru, 2,792 meters above sea level, 75 kilometers northeast of Cusco. The Spanish chroniclers reported it was conquered and rebuilt by Inca Emperor Pachacuti in the mid-15th century. In 1536, Manco Inca used it as a fortress and defeated a Spanish expedition on the plain of Mascabamba. The Spanish returned with greater forces. The Incas retreated to Vilcabamba. At the top of Temple Hill sits the wall of the 6 monoliths, each stone over 12 feet tall, each weighing approximately 50 tons. They're made of pink rhyolite, also called rose granite. The quarries are at Cachicata, 5 kilometers away across the Urubamba River and high on the opposite mountainside. The blocks were transported down from an elevation of over 4,000 meters, across the river and up to the construction site. Wooden rollers have been found under abandoned megaliths along the route. Carefully constructed roads of clay and gravel aided transport. But here's the mystery. The temple was never finished. Numerous blocks lie scattered in various stages of completion along the ramps. Some show evidence of having been removed from finished walls, indicating a major remodeling was underway when construction stopped. No one knows which event halted the work. Candidates include the War of Succession between Huascar and Atahualpa around 1532, the Spanish conquest, or Manco Inca's retreat to Vilcabamba. Some researchers propose the lower megalithic foundations predate the Inca entirely. The lowest stones are older, larger, and cut with precision that exceeds the upper Inca work. Slightly vitrified surfaces suggest heat or an unknown shaping method. The blocks fit into bedrock itself with astonishing accuracy. Recesses of no known function are carved into solid rock. The pattern repeats. Across the Andes, megalithic foundations appear beneath Inca construction. It's as if the Incas inherited sacred sites already ancient. They recognized power and adapted it, layering their culture over earlier work. Brian Forster, who has researched megalithic sites extensively, notes the inferior stonework on top of master blocks. The Inca attempted to repair or expand upon the work of an older, mysterious culture. Some call them the Pirujas, or Viracotians. The wall of the 6 monoliths stands incomplete, pink stone glowing at sunset, the builder's tools abandoned along the road, the temple frozen mid-construction. Why did they stop? What changed? Stones remain. The answer doesn't. Shift focus. They represent a remarkable manifestation of a common religion and social homogeneity. But what were they actually for? Maria Reiche, a German mathematician who spent decades studying the lines from the 1940s onward, described their proportions as perfect. She believed the Nazca used ancient units of measurement to plan designs. Paul Kosak from Long Island University flew over the lines in the late 1930s and called them strange and unique networks visible in many places, sometimes lacing back and forth in extremely complex ways. The most popular theory, astronomical calendar. The lines align with solstices and star patterns. Religious theory, ritual walkways where people communed with gods. The giant line-type geoglyphs are spaced along pilgrimage routes to Kawachi Temple, a major ceremonial center. Ceremonies related to the depicted animals were probably performed during pilgrimages. Water theory. Some researchers propose the lines mark underground aquifers in this hyper-arid region. The Nazca civilization thrived between 200 BC and 600 AD. They needed water. Practical theory. The 2024 AI study suggests relief-type geoglyphs were made spontaneously by travelers along trails, sharing information about human activities with individuals or small groups. The line types required planning and community coordination for ceremonial purposes. Multiple purposes, different scales, different motifs, alien theory. The designs are only fully visible from the air. The Nazca never flew. Therefore, the lines were made for sky gods or extraterrestrial visitors. This theory is popular in fringe circles but lacks supporting evidence. The Nazca were capable of creating large designs using careful planning, measurement, and ground-based coordination. No flight required. The truth? Probably all of the above. Ritual, astronomy, water, community identity, information sharing. The lines served multiple functions across centuries. The Nazca civilization collapsed around 1000 AD. Drought. The lines remained, slowly fading, waiting for drones and AI to reveal their full extent. Next case. Bolivia, near the Peru border. 18 kilometers from Lake Titicaca, 3,820 meters above sea level. The Tiwanaku Empire built these structures around AD 600. The civilization thrived until around 1000 AD, then collapsed suddenly, probably due to extended drought. Pumapunku, meaning Gate of the Puma, is a terraced platform mound with a sunken court. The site features H-shaped megalithic blocks made of red sandstone and andesite. The largest block weighs 131 metric tons. Another weighs 180 tons. The blocks measure 7 to 8 meters wide. They were broken soon after construction, possibly by earthquake, then repaired with copper cramps. The precision is what stuns visitors. The blocks have flat surfaces, sharp linear edges, perfectly executed right angles, and drilled holes with small diameters. The joints fit without mortar. The blocks appear prefabricated, as if mass-produced. This level of uniformity is unmatched in the pre-Columbian Americas. Spanish chronicler Pedro de Chiesa de Leon visited in 1549 and marveled, wondering what tools could have achieved such perfection. He wrote of doorways with jambs, lintels, and thresholds all of one stone. Research published by the Geopolymer Institute in France proposes the blocks are geopolymer concrete, not quarried stone. There are no quarries in the vicinity that match the sandstone composition. Sodium content in samples from Pumapunku is higher than any regional sandstone source identified so far. If the blocks aren't natural stone, they must have been transported from far away. But moving 180-ton blocks across mountains at over 4,000 meters elevation with primitive sledges seems impossible. The geopolymer theory suggests the blocks were cast on-site using a type of sandstone concrete mixed with plant-based compounds. This would explain the precision and the lack of nearby quarries. But it raises another question. How did 6th century people develop concrete technology that wouldn't reappear in the West until the modern era, Experiments by archaeologists Jean-Pierre Protzen and Stella Nair showed that Tiwanaku artisans likely used stone tools including flint, agate, jasper, obsidian, quartzite, and hematite. Bronze tools proved largely ineffective against hard andesite. Nair succeeded in carving a small section with the same precision shown at Pumapunku. It took extreme patience and skill. The Tiwanaku civilization is credited with building Pumapunku, but the site was never finished. Construction was abandoned before completion. By the time the Inca arrived in the 1400s, Pumapunku was lifeless, a ruin. The Inca incorporated it into their worldview, calling it the site where all life began. The blocks lie scattered, broken, perfectly cut, silent about the hands that shaped them. Move forward. Antonio Portugal, a researcher based in La Paz, has monitored these anomalies using various instruments. The observations are documented but not explained. Theories range from high iron content in the stone to unknown geologic factors to structural modifications made during ancient construction. Some speculate the builders incorporated magnetic materials deliberately. Others suggest natural magnetization occurred over centuries. The anomalies are real. Multiple independent observers confirm them. But consensus on cause remains absent. The magnetic signatures don't match typical volcanic rock. They don't match regional geology. They exist in isolated patches at the site. Brian Forster, who has conducted multiple investigations at Pumapunku, documents compass movements near carved edges. The effect is subtle but measurable. Mainstream archaeology doesn't dispute the magnetic readings. They simply lack an explanation that fits current models. The stones remain magnetized, mysterious, waiting for someone to solve the riddle. Continue. It requires temperatures upward of 1100 degrees Celsius. At Sacsayhuaman, some stone surfaces are smooth and slick, almost like ceramic glaze. The rodadero, a section of polished stone, is still used as a slide by children. At Ollantaytambo, similar vitrified surfaces appear on the oldest megalithic blocks. The surfaces are not consistent with hand polishing using sand and stone. They show characteristics of heat treatment. Geologist Ivan Watkins from St. Cloud University investigated the phenomenon. He compared the surfaces to modern thermal disaggregation, a process that uses focused light energy to cut through rock. Geologist David Lindroth at the U.S. Bureau of Mines used 100 watts of light focused to a 2mm circle to cut any rock. Heat can melt quartz fragments into a glaze that fills irregularities, creating smooth surfaces. Watkins theorized the Incas might have used parabolic gold bowls to focus sunlight. A cache of large parabolic gold bowls is kept at a museum in Peru. Their shape and material are perfect for creating focused solar mirrors. A modern-day priest in Cusco wears a bracelet with a polished concave indentation used to light cotton wisps during the yearly Festival of the Sun. The technology existed. The question is scale. Could enough focused sunlight generate temperatures high enough to vitrify large stone surfaces? Experimental attempts have been inconclusive. Some researchers propose forest fires or intense battles cause localized vitrification. Tests on replicated walls have failed to reproduce the effect. Others suggest the vitrification occurred during an ancient atomic war. No radioactive evidence supports this. Chemical testing doesn't match nuclear scenarios. The vitrified stones exist, smooth, glassy, unexplained by conventional methods. The Incas may have possessed solar focusing technology, or they inherited vitrified stones from an earlier culture. The surfaces remain slick, cold, silent on their origin. Keep pressing. Rose rhyolite blocks weighing tens of tons lie abandoned along ancient roads and ramps. The Spanish phrase piedras cansadas means tired stones. They're called that because they appear to have given up halfway through the journey. Some blocks are partially finished, others are fully shaped but never placed. One massive block rests at the base of the ramp leading directly to the wall of the 6 monoliths. Excavations beneath these abandoned stones revealed carefully constructed roads of clay and gravel designed to aid transport. Wooden rollers were discovered under one megalith. The transport system was sophisticated, so why did they stop? The blocks weren't abandoned due to lack of capability. The Incas clearly had the engineering knowledge to move them. They had already moved dozens of similar blocks to the construction site. Something interrupted the work. Theory 1. The Spanish conquest. The timeline fits. Construction was active when the Spanish arrived in 1532. Manco Inca's retreat in 1536 would have ended all major building projects. Theory 2. The War of Succession between Huáscar and Atahualpa starting around 1529. Civil War diverted resources and labor. Theory 3. Deliberate abandonment. Some researchers propose the Incas ritually closed certain sites, leaving them incomplete as offerings. This happened at Calakmul 4,000 years earlier, but the evidence at Ollantaytambo suggests sudden halt, not ritual closure. The blocks lie where workers left them. Tools were abandoned, no ceremony, just stoppage. The piedras cansadas remain along the mountain road, massive, silent, frozen mid-journey like a photograph of ancient engineering caught in time. Next. Multiple researchers have confirmed these alignments. The precision suggests intentional design for astronomical observation or ceremonial timing. The Incas were master astronomers. They tracked solar and lunar cycles to regulate agricultural calendars. Observatories existed at many Inca sites, but here's the puzzle. The astronomical alignments at Ollantaytambo may predate the Inca. If the megalithic foundations are older, as some evidence suggests, then an earlier culture encoded astronomical knowledge into the site's layout. The Inca would have inherited this knowledge and adapted it. Alan Collada, an archaeologist specializing in Andean cultures, notes that the terraced platform mound depicted on the Gateway of the Sun at Tiwanaku is a stylized depiction of Pumapunku. Astronomical knowledge and architectural planning were linked across these ancient Andean sites. The patterns suggest cultural continuity spanning centuries or millennia. The alignments at Ollantaytambo are not unique. They fit into a broader pattern of astronomical architecture across Peru and Bolivia, but the precision remains remarkable. No modern instruments, no computers, just observation, mathematics, and stone. The sun still rises over Temple Hill. The shadows still fall according to ancient patterns. The stones still mark time. Last case. The practice of ritually closing sacred sites appears across Andean cultures. It's a way of honoring a place while moving on. But why close Calakpuma? The plaza had stood for over 2,000 years. It survived from the late Preceramic period through the initial period into the early Horizon. Then someone decided it was time to cover it. The reasons are lost. Possibilities, social change. The mobile hunter-gatherer groups who built the plaza had become fully agricultural. Their ceremonial needs changed. New identities formed around different sacred spaces. Environmental change. Climate shifts altered resource distribution. The plaza's location no longer served the community's needs. Religious transformation. New belief systems replaced old ones. The vertical megaliths represented powers that no longer fit the worldview. Conflict. Rival groups may have forced the closure. Burying the plaza could have been an act of preservation or desecration. All we know is this. People carried dirt and stones. They covered the megalithic circles. They walked away. The plaza stayed buried for 2,500 years, until archaeologists from the University of Wyoming excavated it, starting in 2018. Jason Tuhey and his team uncovered the concentric circles. Radiocarbon dated the charcoal published in Science Advances. The plaza was given back to sunlight. Local people had known about the circular structure for many years. In that sense, the archaeologists didn't discover it. They systematically studied it. They gave it context. They connected it to the broader story of Andean monument building. The closure remains mysterious, deliberate, respectful, final, until modern science reopened what ancient hands sealed. Sacsayhuaman's precision can be explained through wooden templates and hammerstones, but the possibility of older foundations lingers. The Nazca lines served multiple purposes, but the scale and dedication required still impresses. Ollantaytambo was never finished, and we'll never know exactly what stopped the work. Tiwanaku and Pumapunku display precision that challenges explanations, with geopolymer theories offering interesting alternatives, but lacking definitive proof. Magnetic anomalies, vitrified surfaces, abandoned stones, astronomical alignments, ritual closures. Each mystery adds a layer. They worked with stone on a scale that required coordinated labor, skilled artisans, and patience measured in generations. They encoded meaning into their structures through alignment, proportion, and placement. They honored sacred sites across millennia. They adapted, rebuilt, and sometimes deliberately closed their monuments. And in some cases, they achieved precision and scale that modern engineers struggle to replicate using hand tools. What we don't know, the full extent of their techniques, whether all these sites were built by the cultures we credit them to, or whether earlier, unknown builders left foundations that later civilizations adapted. And why certain construction methods appear and then vanish, never to be used again in quite the same way. What knowledge was lost when these civilizations collapsed? Whether environmental catastrophe, disease, drought, or conquest wiped away more than just cities, and whether entire technological systems disappeared with them. Geochemical analysis traces stone sources. Experimental archaeology tests theories with hands-on replication. The picture clarifies. Slowly, but some mysteries resist solution, not because they're unsolvable, but because the evidence is incomplete. The builders left no written records. Oral traditions fragmented over centuries. Conquest and colonization destroyed libraries and knowledge systems. What remains are the stones themselves and the questions they raise. It shows that sophisticated artistic and architectural traditions existed in Peru long before the civilizations we study in textbooks. The mural isn't megalithic. It's not about stones, it's about continuity. It proves that advanced cultures were building, carving, painting, and encoding meaning into structures across Peru for thousands of years before the Inca Empire even existed. The Inca didn't invent Andean civilization. They inherited it. They adapted it. They built upon foundations laid by cultures whose names we've forgotten. When you stand at Sacsayhuaman or Ollantaytambo or Pumapunku and look at the megalithic blocks, You're not just seeing Inca work. You're seeing the endpoint of a tradition that stretches back 4 or 5 millennia. The knowledge was cumulative, the techniques were refined across generations. The precision wasn't magic, it was mastery. The 12 mysteries of Peru's megalithic sites aren't about aliens or lost super-civilizations. They're about human capability pushed to its limits and sometimes beyond what we thought possible. They're about cultures that didn't leave convenient explanations, but left monuments that force us to ask better questions. They're about the humility of admitting we don't have all the answers yet, and the excitement of knowing that every excavation, every drone survey, every AI analysis brings us closer to understanding. The stones remain, the questions sharpen, the work continues. That's the real mystery, not what we can't explain, but what we'll discover next. When we speak of a 200-ton block at Sacsayhuaman, we aren't just talking about weight. We're talking about inertia, gravity, and the mechanical advantage required to overcome them. Modern cranes use hydraulic systems and steel cables with tensile strengths in the tens of thousands of pounds per square inch. The ancient Andean people had llama hair rope and human muscle. Experimental archaeology has shown that a group of 100 men can move a 10-ton stone using wooden rollers on flat ground. But Sacsayhuaman isn't flat ground. It is a steep mountain ascent. To move 200 tons up a 20-degree incline requires more than just more men. It requires a surface that won't crumble under the pressure, meaning the roads themselves were engineering marvels. We have found evidence of these roads, built with layers of compacted gravel and clay, essentially becoming a pre-modern rail system. And lower the multi-ton block dozens of times to test the fit. How? There are no winch points, no liver scars. Some suggest they used sand ramps and gravity, but the space constraints at sites like Ollantaytambo make massive ramps physically impossible. This suggests a missing technology, perhaps not high-tech in the modern sense, but a high-thought technique, a way of visualizing geometry that we have lost. The biological link, the people of the high altitudes. We must also consider the builders themselves. At 4,000 meters above sea level, the air has 40% less oxygen than at sea level. Modern visitors often struggle to walk a mile without gasping for air. Yet the builders of Pumapunku and Tiwanaku were performing grueling physical labor. This implies a biological adaptation that evolved over millennia. Recent genetic studies of Andean populations show a specific gene variant related to cardiovascular efficiency at high altitudes. This tells us that the ancient builders weren't just a different culture, they were a population uniquely tuned to their environment. This biological reality refutes the alien theory. It shows that humans are capable of incredible feats when their biology and culture are perfectly aligned with their geography. The mystery isn't who they were, but how they coordinated that biological potential into 200-ton realities. Undeciphered. Environmental catastrophe. The Great Eraser. Why did these civilizations collapse? In nearly every case, Tiwanaku, Nazca, Moche, the answer is the environment. The El Niño Southern Oscillation, ENSO patterns in Peru, are some of the most violent in the world. We see evidence of 30-year droughts followed by decade-long floods. The workers walk away from the 50-ton stones at Ollantaytambo. The priests bury the plaza at Calakpuma. The abandonment we see isn't just a lack of interest. It is a systemic failure of the world they knew. The 12 mysteries are the leftovers of people who fought against a changing climate and eventually lost. The Band of Holes may have been an accounting system, but the choice of location and method remains strange. Calakpuma proves nomadic people built megaliths, but we don't know why vertical stones mattered. Sacsayhuaman's precision can be explained through wooden templates and hammerstones, but the possibility of older foundations lingers. The Nazca lines served multiple purposes, but the scale and dedication required still impresses. Each stone is a data point in a story we're still learning to read. Archaeology advances. AI accelerates discovery. Drone mapping reveals patterns invisible from the ground. Radiocarbon dating provides precise timelines. Geochemical analysis traces stone sources. Experimental archaeology tests theories with hands-on replication. The picture clarifies, slowly, but some mysteries resist solution. Not because they're unsolvable, but because the evidence is incomplete. To stand in the shadow of a 200-ton block is to realize that our ancestors were not primitive. They were masters of their world, possessing a clarity of purpose that allowed them to move mountains. That to be remembered, you must build something that cannot be moved, cannot be burned, and cannot be ignored. The megaliths remain, standing, scattered, buried, waiting. And they will likely be standing long after our modern cities have returned to the dust.